I'm sure many of you have heard of the High Holy Days, right? They come once a year. I was in California last month and they told me they do it every other year because it's a real pain in the butt. But whatever, most of us, even if we're not regular temple goers, wind up there for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Let me tell you a story about a small little shul, a synagogue, far away from the centers of Jewish life. They could hardly get a quorum, a minyan of Jews together every Shabbos, every Saturday. But you know what? At Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they got a monster crowd. They didn't know where the people came. They came out of the parquet floors. They couldn't figure it out. 1,500 people showed up, and because of their largesse, because of their generosity, the shul was able to survive the whole year. Of course, during the year, they couldn't afford a rabbi or a cantor, but on Rosh Hashanah, they brought a cantor. A chazan. A chazan, he was 88 years old, and this chazan was doing it there for 55 years. And they kept this chazan chained to a tenement in the old neighborhood, so they could say, we brought the chazan from the old neighborhood. I know it makes me want to tear up too. But the bottom line is, my friends, it's the afternoon of Yom Kippur. It's not the Kol Nidre crowd, but the Ne'ilah crowd, if you know who I mean. A little bit more serious. And they know when that plaintive tune begins, ay, 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 the curtains will open, they'll stand, and it's 72 minutes to brunch. As a matter of fact, there's somebody in the back who's making coffee, and the smell of coffee is wafting through the synagogue. People are drooling. It's an ugly sight. But still, the chazan gets up slowly. He's 88 years old, sets himself up, faces the crowd, opens his mouth, garnished. Nothing comes up. They can't believe it. The chazan's voice has finally failed. So in the back, Mrs. Goldstein says, chazan, give a cough. And he starts a cough, one of those coughs that start in the ankles and go to the knees, to the hips, to the chest. Nothing comes up, thank God, at this point. But they don't know what to do. How can you conclude Yom Kippur without Ne'ilah? So, thank God, they couldn't afford a rabbi, but they had a president. Does your shul have a president? They were wonderful. Gets up and he looks around the room. Is there anybody in the congregation? He was from the Mel Allen School of making announcements. It was, anybody, congregation, 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 congregation. Is there anybody who can complete the service? Nobody volunteers. Of course, you know how it happens. You volunteer, they put you on the board. Second time he says, is there anybody who can hum? Hum would be all right. And they look back to Mr. Goldstein, who was their rabbinic authority because he had lived in the Bronx before the Second World War. They say, Goldstein, can we hum? Yeah, we hummed once in 37. It was a good year. Nobody wants to volunteer. Finally, in the back, an old man gets up and he says, wait a second, I have a solution to this problem. And they look at him. He's a little bit off the rails, if you know what I mean. And he says, I got a dog who can do it. Well, everybody gets a bigger laugh than I'm probably going to get with this joke. But whatever. The head of the financial committee is pulling on the leg of the president, and he says, Morris, let the dog do it. Let the dog. What do we got to lose? We got to finish the service. On the other leg is pulling the ritual director. You know who I mean? The guy who wears, sensible shoes, polyester clothes, white socks. You know who I mean? He's saying, you can't do this. This is not a zoo. This is a shul. How can you do a thing like that? Well, after a while, they decide, let's try it. So the dog comes down the aisle wearing a little yarmulke, a skull cap, and a tallis, a prayer shawl, gets up in front of the crowd and begins to give a service that they'd never heard before. The dog had a 4-octave range. It was unbelievable. The service came to an end, and nobody moved. The air of repentance so thick you could cut it like a Shapiro wine. It was unbelievable. And the president looked up at the old man and says, we thought you were kidding, you're a little bit off, but that dog is phenomenal. That dog, that dog can take over for Richard Tucker. That dog can play Vegas. Hell of a dog. And the old man looks up and he says, ay, nebuch, nebuch, ay, what can I do? You talk to that dog. Talk to him. He wants to be a doctor.